I had to come to terms with the fact that, as you said, everyone has their own version of what they would want in The Witcher, how they would want the stories told, what they think that the characters look like, what is important from the books that has to be there, what can be lost. Everyone is different. This is the most diverse fan base I've ever experienced. And so I had to come to terms with the fact that there was going to be disappointment for someone along the way. There is no way to please everyone. If we tried, it would have just been a watered down mess.
Those remarks coming from Lauren Hissrich is exactly why a lot of Witcher fans have had disdain and anger for the direction that she has taken this franchise on. This isn't necessarily something that's even recent. There's been a lot of frustration with how the show has been going and the deviation from the books, which was especially noticeable during season 2. But now, obviously, things have exploded. Things have been exasperated with Henry Cavill now quitting on the franchise. As I evidenced in a recent video, over the course of the last couple of years, Cavill has voiced his own frustration with the direction that the show has been going in which the writers, the showrunners, just obviously do not have the same passion or care for The Witcher. Something that is not even a question, as a former writer exposed the fact that these individuals openly mock the source material on set and while they're working on this. Regardless, the outrage and controversy surrounding Netflix's Witcher series is only growing, as fans continue to voice their displeasure and anger with Henry Cavill no longer involved, and many just wanting this franchise to wrap up and end. And now with the Witcher spin-off series having some new reveals, well, fans are taking it out on that, and certainly it is not necessarily just connected to the recent events with Henry Cavill, but it's just with the fact that it doesn't look good. It looks super generic and boring, something that has become a problem within Hollywood the last couple of years. All of these fantasy adaptations and the writers and individuals putting their own personal biases and agendas on display, but the unfortunate part about that is that they're not enhancing these projects with better writing, better storytelling. More so, it's about hitting on those imaginary checklists of what society should look like, what it should look like in fantasy. It's incorporating personal opinion, and that is a problem when you are working on an established franchise which has already documented how everything should be. And that point specifically is what a lot of fans have been bringing up as of late. This was already mapped out for the Netflix crew. This really was an easy home run, but unfortunately they went in a completely different direction, which in many eyes has disrespected the source material. And again, this is not necessarily a new trend. Unpopular decisions has been something that a lot of Witcher fans have become used to with this franchise. Before The Witcher even went into production, when the casting was first announced and leaked, there was a lot of people upset with the fact that Netflix was going with a more diverse cast. Not necessarily something that was representative of the actual source material, but something that's more representative of today's society. And personally myself, I'm all for a diverse cast if it makes sense. But unfortunately, with a lot of these fantasy adaptations, it usually doesn't, outside of what Game of Thrones is really the only example I can think of off the top of my head. A more recent example of an unpopular decision would be the family-friendly spin-off that's coming about. That was something that took a lot of people by surprise because of the fact that The Witcher is known for its darker tone and themes. And again, this is the commercialization of The Witcher, and the fact that Netflix wants to make this into a big, huge franchise, but unfortunately the writing just isn't there. The only thing they had, remember, is Henry Cavill's involvement. Still though, over the years, Lauren Hissrich, the showrunner, has been active with responding to the many criticisms that she has received. It's just unfortunate that it doesn't seem like she really listened to a lot of those criticisms. I mean, look to the first season promotional tour. She said that any of the changes that they were making from the books were not made lightly. And then during season 2's promotional tour last year, she said, "I think that one of the beauties of building out a Witcher universe is that you can actually use the spin-offs to do slightly different things than the books did. But to me, that actually makes it even more important that in the Mothership series, we always stick to what Sapkowski intended. To me, I just don't think it's my responsibility to continue those stories when he clearly felt there was a natural ending." And again, I really don't understand how you make those remarks and go in a completely different direction. And in that same interview, Henry Cavill was also interviewed, and he said, "For me, it is all about the books." And as we explored in my last video, that is the key thing here. Henry Cavill was all about the books. The writers of the show, not so much. And over the course of the last week or so, we've seen a lot of Witcher fans reflecting on interesting remarks that have come from the Witcher crew, such as Lauren Hissrich saying, "This is what adaptation looks like. Who knew folding pages was so divisive? 20 reads in." And people in this Reddit thread saying, "Don't forget straight pages to cut out, folded pages to rewrite completely." And then another user saying, "Lauren before season 2 talking to IGN, The Witcher showrunner, said of the 7-season plan, it would be a straight translation of the books. I think there's just so much material that I don't feel the need to start inventing my own to keep it going, and that has aged extremely poor." And then people just mocking her on multiple occasions with many memes, and somebody even actually went to our Wikipedia page and wrote, "She is the butcher of The Witcher." Really, a lot of people very, very upset with her. And as this recent article from Telegraph pointed out, the extent to which Cavill carried years 1 and 2 of The Witcher is hard to overstate. Steeped in the lore of the novels and games, he did more than portray Geralt. He illuminated every aspect of the character. For fans, everything else about the show has been a travesty. Season 1 suffered from the bizarre decision by Hisrich to tell the story over a trio of confusing timelines. That was one of my biggest criticisms. For a casual viewer, I don't think anybody knew what was going on. Even those versed in the source material were baffled as we tracked Geralt, Yennefer, Ciri across the decades, without necessarily knowing they were trapped in separate timelines. The three-way split was frustrating and chaotic. For instance, the ambivalence we feel in the games towards the all-conquering Nilfgaard Empire is swatted away. Nilfgaard is instead depicted simply as a force of implacable evil, rather than a complicated nation with a lots of moving parts. And that's the issue with just television in general, and yes, The Witcher show. It's the complexity is thrown out the window as everything has to be dialed down quite a bit, because you have thousands of pages to explore these characters, these empires, and then unfortunately in these shows it's usually butchered, and that's exactly what happened here, which is why I'm always very hesitant with these adaptations. But The Witcher fans have been very active about their criticisms with this show for a long time. Look no further than 11 months ago, in which a Redditor actually put together a lengthy list of all of the changes that were made from the Book of Blood of Elves, such as Voleth Mare is not in the books, completely new character, which I believe is like a female version of Gontar O'Dim. You may remember that character from the games. Ciri is never possessed by a witch. The Stregobor stuff isn't a thing in the books. He's there, but plays no important role. Yennefer is not captured by Nilfgaard in the books. Yennefer does not lose her magic in the books. Yennefer never considers sacrificing Ciri for power, nor does the opportunity ever arise, which is, yeah, that was an extremely weird thing. You know, the motherly, fatherly relationship that Geralt and Yennefer are supposed to have with Ciri, it just hasn't personally clicked for me fully. Ciri and Geralt, yes, but Yennefer and Ciri, that's been a disaster. And this is extremely lengthy. Fringilla Vigo does not become de facto leader of Sintra in the books. Instead, she F's off to Nilfgaard. Cahir is not captured by the Brotherhood following Sodden in the books. His execution plot point never even happens in the books. Eskil is not turned into a Leshen and then killed, and then it goes on and on. Shani was in the books. Where the hell is Shani in the show? Philippa plays a much larger role in the books. She meets Geralt in Oxenfurt, and together with Dandelion and Shani's help, they locate Rhys. There are only 4 Witchers at Kaer Morhen. The plot points with Ciri's blood being able to make more Witchers is not in the books. Vesemir never collects her blood either. The thought of making more Witchers is only ever entertained in the context of Ciri being raised as a girl versus being raised as a Witcher. But the mutagenic process itself, Trial of Grasses, is never brought up. Yennefer does not travel to the temple to kidnap Ciri and sacrifice her in the books. The elf and Sintra plot is not in the books. Francesca never gets pregnant, nor does Emir commit that against an elven baby in the books. The notion that a pure-blooded elf hasn't been born in decades is also a Netflix invention. Elves have a much smaller window of time to get pregnant, but it still happens in the books. Avalok and Geralt talk about this in the Tower of Swallow. The monoliths are not a thing in the books. Yennefer and Cahir never have a team up in the books. And then, as this user points out, it's not an exaggeration to say that the majority of this season is different from the books, and not just sort of different, but drastically different. And then another user commented that another thing that bothered them about the show is so far the mismanagement of passage of time. Nowhere in the show is the sheer time spent on travel or training properly reflected. People just fast travel even to places they have no idea about. And again, I have to imagine that the conversations that happen behind the scenes between between Cavill and Hisrich was that what she said to us is what she told him, that we're going to have a straight translation of the books to the screen, and that's not what happened. And as we talked about in my last video, there was clear friction between the two parties, and now Cavill is moving on. And now we're actually also getting more context behind Liam Hemsworth coming in, as it's been reported that he actually auditioned for The Witcher in 2018, and he was apparently one of their top 5 picks, and well, now he got to play the part, and his brother Chris Hemsworth is actually backing him up. And the thing is, unfortunately, if Chris Hemsworth was actually taking over, I'd feel a little bit better, because he is a much better actor. Liam Hemsworth, I don't even think he's the second best actor in his family. Luke Hemsworth, I think, is actually even better. Maybe even be a better choice for Geralt at this point. But the anger surrounding the Witcher franchise is growing. We talked about this petition the other day, and it has now grown. I think at the time it was around 80 or so thousand signatures. Now it's past 220,000. And I understand that this isn't going to change minds. This isn't going to scare Netflix necessarily, but it does make a point from the fan base and how frustrated, how much anger there actually is. And it does send a very clear message that something has to change. Whether that actually happens, who knows? But I do fear that Season 3 is going to continue in the same direction that Season 2 went in, and there's just going to be a lot of uproar, and also a lot of people maybe understanding why Cavill is now moving on back to Superman and whatever other roles he has planned. But I think one thing that has been kind of forgotten is the fact that a Witcher-related spin-off is supposed to be launching this year, and just the other day we got a teaser trailer for it, and things are not going well. The Witcher Blood Origin teaser trailer on YouTube has over 77,000 dislikes to 30,000 likes, and the comment section is absolutely brutal, and it's pretty much predictable, everything that you would expect based on the current events. Henry is a national treasure, the writer's room is disposable. I like the part where Netflix said the writers aren't the problem, it's the fans in the books. I love the part where Henry slams the writer's head into the table. You get where this is going. And to be fair, my personal opinion on this actual footage, this video of the spin-off, it looks super generic. I couldn't even tell it was connected to The Witcher, and it is just a short series. It's not meant to be multiple seasons, so I guess there is that, but it doesn't look very interesting in my personal opinion. But I do have to acknowledge that this YouTube comment section is not where the uproar is just staying, because on Twitter, everywhere this is being posted, it's the same thing. Everybody is voicing how angry they are with this series and how upset that they are to see Henry Cavill now leaving. And also the fact that Blood Origin doesn't look very promising. But as it stands, there are hundreds of thousands of passionate Witcher fans which are very upset with Netflix. And Netflix thus far has ignored all of the anger. They are just continuing on. The showrunner Lauren Hisrich is not very active on social media anymore, but eventually there is going to be promotional tours for these upcoming spin-offs, and I do imagine she's going to have to say something about the current state of the franchise and how many fans are very upset with the direction that the show is now going in. Even the video game actor which brought Geralt of Rivia to the mainstream voiced his disappointment with seeing Henry Cavill depart. The uproar and outrage surrounding this situation is not going away anytime soon. Anyway, what do you make of the collapse of the Witcher Netflix series? It really is something that is sad in my opinion, but maybe not all that surprising. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games. And again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.